Hi everyone, Shana Tova. I have a very special story here to read to you today. It's called Apple Days, a Rosh Hashanah story. And it's one of our PJ Library books. The authors are Allison Sarnoff Soffer, and the illustrator who drew all the beautiful pictures is Bob McMahon. Let's dig in. What are you looking forward to this Rosh Hashanah? Kathy's teacher asked the class. Hearing the shofar, shouted Max. Chicken soup at Grandma's, exclaimed Abby. Katie raised her hand, beaming. Applesauce, she said, but not just any kind. Every year, my mom and I go apple picking, and then we make our own. Katie had even more to share, and I will have a new baby cousin later this month. Applesauce and a baby in the new year? Her teacher replied. How exciting! Katie loved apples. She loved biting into their crispy skin and discovering the sweet, tart taste inside, but she loved applesauce even more. Every year at the orchard, Katie and her mother would search for the perfect apples. They would walk the rows, picking some of each variety until their bucket was full. Do you go apple picking? I like to go apple picking in the fall with my family. At home, Katie would place 10 apples on the kitchen counter, and her mother would start to peel. Katie watched as her mother's steady hands moved quickly in circles, unraveling the skin like thread from a spool. Then, Katie's mother would core and slice the apples, and Katie would put them into their biggest pot. There she is, putting them into a big pot. Katie would take cinnamon and sugar from the pantry and sprinkle them into the pot. Finally, she would squeeze in some lemon juice and add a little bit of water. Soon, the kitchen would fill with the sweet smell of apples and cinnamon. That smells delicious. Just thinking about it made Katie's mouth water. I bet. I love apples and cinnamon. Let's make next Wednesday Apple Day, said Katie's mother, and Katie drew a big apple on the calendar. Here she is, putting the big apple on the calendar. Katie told everyone about Apple Day. Soon her dad knew, and her neighbor knew. Carla, the hairdresser, knew, and Sam, the shoe store man, knew. The principal knew, Rabbi Portnoy knew, and her friends Max and Abby knew. On Monday, she told her class, it's getting closer. Katie couldn't wait for each day to pass. She's very excited to get her apples. On Tuesday, the phone rang, and Katie answered. Hi, said Aunt Leah. May I speak to your mom, Katie? Oh, hi, said Katie. Guess what? We're going. Katie, I'm sorry to interrupt, sweetie, but I need your mom now. Uh-oh. Katie was puzzled. Puzzled is a fancy way to say confused. Aunt Leah always wanted to hear about everything, but Katie went to find her mother. And when her mom hung up the phone, she turned to Katie. Your new baby cousin is coming early, so I'm afraid we can't go apple picking tomorrow. But Mommy, Katie cried, you promised. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Oh, Katie's really sad that she can't go apple picking. She's feeling very disappointed. I know this is disappointing for you, Katie. It is for me too. But I have to help Aunt Leah. It's your job to be a big girl. But we won't have applesauce for Rosh Hashanah, said Katie sadly. Oh no. It's her favorite tradition. The next day, Katie's father walked her to school. Why so sad? The crossing guard asked her. Isn't today Apple Day? We can't go, Katie mumbled. Can't go? Asked Max. Why not? Because of the baby, Katie said. Oh, she's feeling really disappointed. Max told Abby, who told their teacher, who told the principal, who told the rabbi. When Abby got to her haircut, she told Carla. And when Max went to buy school shoes, he told Sam. everybody's finding out that Katie's not going to get to have her apple day. When Katie and her dad arrived home after school, they found a bright red apple on the doorstep, and next to it was a note that said, "Dear Katie, I heard what happened. Maybe this will help. Love, Rabbi Portnoy." The rabbi left her a special gift. The next day, the crossing guard handed Katie a yellow apple. And the principal placed another in her backpack. Katie's teacher gave her an apple at circle time, and so did each of her friends. Her backpack was almost full. They're all giving Katie a special apple because they know how disappointed she was that she missed out on her special apple day. Walking home with her dad, Katie passed the shoe store. Sam, too, had a surprise, a jar of cinnamon. "Wait, Katie," shouted Carla from the beauty shop. "I have some sugar and lemon for you." They're all chipping in all the ingredients to make the special applesauce. That's so kind and thoughtful. When they got home, Katie lined up 10 apples on the kitchen counter, and she tried to remember what her mother did next. She and her father stared at the apples, the cinnamon, the sugar, and the lemon, wondering exactly how to turn them into applesauce. "First, we have to peel them," Katie said, so her father took out the peeler and got to work. She's remembering how her mommy makes the applesauce. "What's next?" her dad asked. "Mommy finds recipes on the computer," Katie suggested, and climbed onto her father's lap, and he searched the internet. "Next, we have to core and chop the apples," her dad said, reading from the screen. So they're following a recipe on the computer. "Then Mommy puts them in the big pot," Katie continued. "We have to find it." I think she found it up in the cupboard. In went the apples, then the cinnamon and the sugar, and finally the lemon juice. Dad turned on the stove. Soon the kitchen filled with the sweet smells of apples and cinnamon. Let's take a sniff. I think I'm starting to smell it. One taste and they knew. "We did it!" exclaimed Katie. They did it. They worked together. The next morning, Katie walked into her classroom proudly carrying a tray of cups filled with applesauce. "Thanks for your help, everybody," she said. Look, she's thanking them by having them all taste her applesauce, so they know how delicious it is and how thankful she is that they were able to help her make her applesauce, even though her mommy couldn't help her this time. A few days later, on Rosh Hashanah, she filled Grandma's crystal bowl with applesauce and placed it in the center of the holiday table. When her mom arrived with Aunt Leah and her new cousin Will, she hugged Katie close. Together, they gazed at tiny Will. Then Katie led her mother to the table. "Oh my!" was all her mother could say. Her father laughed. There was one more surprise. Katie reached into her pocket and pulled out a freezer jar filled with applesauce. Not for now, of course, but soon enough, Will would taste it and smile. They all would. Oh, the end. And back here is a recipe for Katie's applesauce and how she made it. That was a great story. Now my belly's rumbling for a little bit of applesauce myself. Maybe I'll try and use Katie's recipe to make my own applesauce. How about you? Shana Tova, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day.